Okay, so welcome to Binge Guide the Next Show, and we're going to help you figure out what movie you should see next.
I'm Victoria.
And I'm Andrew.
And today...
We're taking a deep dive into this movie, Materialists.
Oh yeah, this one's coming out soon, right?
Yeah, June 13th.
June 13th. I feel like there's a lot of buzz around this one.
There is a lot of buzz, I think, especially because of the writer and director.
Celine Song, yeah, she also did Past Lives, which was like critically acclaimed and nominated for an Oscar.
Yeah, so a lot of people are excited to see what she's going to do next.
For sure, for sure.
Wow.
And also the cast is so good.
Yeah, Dakota Johnson, Chris Evans, Pedro Pascal.
I mean, come on, that's like a huge draw.
Yeah, it's a really interesting mix.
So what's this movie about then?
It's about this woman named Lucy, who's like a matchmaker in New York City.
A matchmaker? So she like sets people up?
Yeah, she's super successful at it. Like in the trailer, it says something about 9 successful weddings.
9 weddings. Wow. She's good at her job.
But she's also kind of like the eternal bachelorette herself.
Oh, the irony.
Yeah, so she's great at finding love for other people, but she's struggling with her own love life.
That's really interesting. So is this a straight-up romantic comedy then?
I think it's got those elements, for sure. Like, there are definitely funny moments in the trailer.
Right.
But knowing Celine Song's work from Past Lives,
Right.
I'm guessing it's going to be a bit more than just like a fluffy rom-com.
Yeah. I mean, Past Lives was so, like, moving and thought-provoking.
Exactly. So I think she's probably going to bring some of that depth to this film, too.
Yeah, explore, like, the complexities of relationships and maybe even, like, what love really means in today's world.
Right. Like, is it all about finding the perfect match, or is there something more to it than that?
You know, it kind of reminds me of that movie Hitch,
Oh, yeah.
where you've got the guy who's, like, a dating coach, but he's totally clueless when it comes to his own love life.
Yeah, that's a good comparison. I think this movie might be kind of like a more nuanced take on that kind of premise.
Definitely. So let's talk about the characters a little bit.
Yeah, so we've got Dakota Johnson playing Lucy.
And like you said, she's the successful matchmaker, but there's also this sense that she's kind of lonely or unfulfilled.
You can see it in her eyes in the trailer.
There's like a sadness behind the smile.
Exactly. And then there are the 2 guys who are vying for her attention.
So you've got Pedro Pascal as Randy, who's like the perfect match on paper.
Right. He's super wealthy, lives in this like $12 million apartment.
They even call him a unicorn bachelor in the trailer.
Yeah. Which is funny, but also kind of says a lot about the kind of guy he is.
Like he's this rare breed that everyone's looking for.
Exactly. And then you have Chris Evans as John, who's Lucy's ex.
And he's described as like cute, but probably problematic.
Yeah, which is so intriguing.
It makes you wonder what went wrong between them.
Right. And if there's still feelings there.
Definitely.
Right.
And it's interesting because John is presented as kind of the opposite of Randy.
Totally. Like, he's not rich or glamorous.
He works in food service, has a roommate. It's a much more like down-to-earth vibe.
Yeah, so it's really this classic setup of like the head versus the heart.
Right. Do you go for the guy who looks good on paper or the one who you have this deep connection with?
It's a tough choice. And I think that's what the movie is going to explore.
For sure. And the supporting cast is really great, too.
Yeah, you've got Zoe Winters, Marin Ireland, Dasha Nekrasova.
Louisa Jacobson, even Sawyer Spielberg.
Yeah, it's a really strong ensemble.
So what can you tell us about the plot?
Well, the trailer shows that Lucy reconnects with John, like right when she's meeting Randy for the first time.
Oh, wow. Talk about bad timing.
Yeah, it's like instant drama.
And then there's that line from John where he says, "When I see your face, I see wrinkles and children that look like you." So where does that leave us?
It's such a weird line.
It is weird, but also kind of romantic in a way.
Yeah, like it suggests that they had this really deep connection and they imagined a future together.
Right, and it's so different from the kind of polished conversations Lucy's having with Randy.
Totally, it's raw and honest.
And it makes you wonder if maybe Lucy misses that kind of intimacy.
For sure. And then there's that moment where Lucy says, "We promised them love, but the math doesn't add up."
Which is so interesting coming from her because she's like the expert on love.
Yeah, and I think it shows that even she's starting to question, like, if there's really a formula for finding love.
Right, maybe it's more about chance and serendipity.
Or maybe it's about being open to different possibilities.
Definitely. So, what do you think about Celine Song's vision for this film?
Well, I think she's probably going to bring that same kind of nuanced approach to relationships that we saw in Past Lives.
Yeah, like exploring the gray areas and the complexities.
Exactly. And I'm curious to see how she's going to balance that with the rom-com elements.
Right, because you want it to be funny and charming, but also, like, have some substance.
Yeah, and I think she's the perfect person to pull that off.
For sure. And it's great that she's working with some of the same people from past lives.
Yeah, like the cinematographer Shabir Kirchner and the editor Keith Fraze.
Their work on that film was so beautiful.
Exactly. So I have high hopes for the visuals in this one, too.
And they shot it on 35mm film, which is really cool.
Yeah, especially for a movie set in modern-day New York.
It's going to give it a really unique look.
Yeah, like maybe a bit nostalgic or romantic.
Totally. So tell me a little bit about the production side of things.
Well, it was filmed in New York City last year.
And it was a pretty quick shoot, right?
Yeah, it wrapped in just a few weeks.
So maybe that means they had a really clear vision for the film.
Yeah, I would hope so.
Yeah.
And the producers are Killer Films and 2AM.
Which are both known for making really interesting indie films.
Exactly. So I think that's a good sign.
Definitely. And what about the music?
Well, the score is by Daniel Pemberton.
Who's done a lot of different kinds of films.
Yeah, he's really versatile, so I'm curious to see what he comes up with for this one.
And there's also an original song by Japanese Breakfast.
Yeah, which is really exciting.
Michelle Zauner's music is so good.
Yeah, it's like emotional and dreamy.
Perfect for a movie about love and relationships.
Totally. So what are some of the themes you think this movie might explore?
Well, definitely the whole idea of what makes a perfect match.
Right, like, is it about material success or emotional connection?
Or maybe it's a combination of both.
Yeah, and I think the movie's going to challenge those assumptions.
For sure. And also the challenges of modern dating.
Yeah, like how do you navigate all the apps and the expectations?
And how do you stay true to yourself in a world where everyone's trying to be someone else?
It's tough.
It is tough.
Yeah.
And I think especially for someone like Lucy, who's so successful in her career.
Yeah, she's used to being in control.
But love is something you can't really control.
Right, you have to let go and be vulnerable.
Which can be scary.
Yeah, especially if you've been hurt before.
So what's the early buzz been like for this movie?
Well, the trailer's been getting a lot of positive attention online.
Yeah, people seem to really like the dialogue.
Yeah, it's funny and sharp.
And the chemistry between the actors seems great.
Yeah, Dakota Johnson's Chris Evans and Pedro Pascal all seem really good in it.
And I've heard that the early test screenings have been positive too.
Yeah, apparently people are really responding to Celine Song's writing.
Which makes sense because she's so talented.
So it sounds like we're in for a real treat.
I think so.
So just to recap, Materialists is coming out on June 13th.
Make sure to mark your calendars.
And it's being released by A24.
Which is a great studio.
Yeah, they make a lot of really interesting films.
So I think this one is definitely worth checking out.
I agree. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Materialists, what's like the big question you think this movie is posing?
I think it's asking us to really examine what we're looking for in love.
Yeah, like what truly matters to us?
Is it the external things like money and status?
Or is it the internal things like connection and shared values?
I think the answer is probably somewhere in between.
Yeah, but it's definitely something to think about.
For sure. And it's also interesting to think about Lucy's role as a matchmaker.
Yeah, like she's helping other people find love, but she's struggling with her own.
It makes you wonder if maybe she's learned something from her clients.
Or maybe she's realized that there's no easy answer when it comes to love.
I guess we'll have to wait and see what the movie reveals.
Exactly. So that's it for our deep dive into Materialists on Binge Guide the next show.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive into a new movie release.
Until then, happy binging.
Yes, happy binging.